Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto flees Konoha with Itachi to escape and build harem with Yugito, Ino and Mei Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto was sitting in his room, well, it was more like a cellar closet. The floors were hard, cold, and uncomfortable, and the only thing he had to keep himself warm was the clothes on his back, which were too small for him, and moth-eaten. He looked at the ceiling and cried, H happy B birthday, T to M me, H happy B birthday, T to me. He curled his feet into himself as he sobbed. Slam. The door to his closet was thrown open and he was dragged out by his hair. He was thrown onto the ground as the air was knocked out of him. Standing above him, Kushina was stumbling over herself, the telltale smell of sake rolling off of her. Why you, demon? She kicked Naruto in the stomach as she grabbed a stake from the wall. How dare you sing when you killed my husband? She grabbed Naruto's hair and sneered, you filthy beast. She stabbed the stake into Naruto's chest, making the young blonde scream in agony. Kushina slapped him as she finished carving Naruto's chest up. I am ashamed to have birthed you. She stepped on his hand and began to apply even more pressure. The only reason you live here is so you can work off your redemption for killing my husband and child. Kushina spat in Naruto's face as she brought her foot back to kick him again. Be glad I have a kind enough heart to let you live under my roof. Just as Kushina was about to kick Naruto, he closed his eyes as he felt a burning sensation. When they opened, the blue that was there disappeared. Instead, the eye now had a gray sclera, a black pupil, and a series of rings making a ripple-like pattern. Instinctively he yelled out, Shinra Tenshi. The effect was instantaneous. Kushina was flung backwards to the wall, dazing her. Naruto sprang to his feet and raced up the stairs. Turning back to her, he yelled out, You don't want me here. Well good. I'm leaving this hellhole and never coming back. He slammed open the door and ran out of the house. The last thing Kushina saw before she passed out of shock was Naruto's eyes, which looked betrayed, sad, and angry, all directed at her. Sasuke. Don't come in. What? Sasuke screamed as he burst through the door. Father. Mother. He shouted as he noticed their bodies on the floor. I warned you, Sasuke. Itachi spoke as he stepped out from the shadows. Brother. Father and mother are dia. Sasuke stopped halfway as his mind registered what had happened. You killed them. Why? Sasuke roared as he charged towards his brother, only for Itachi to seemingly phase out of existence and appear before Sasuke, his fist planted in the young boy's stomach. You want to know why? Fine, I'll tell you. This clan disgusts me, killing each other over such trivial things, power, authority, it's pathetic. If anything, the last 3 ninja wars have shown us that nothing good ever comes from obtaining such things at such a high price, namely thousands of people dead, but this doesn't seem to matter to a clan as fickle as ours. They were planning a coup to take over Konoha, and destroy everything so many people died for. Itachi angrily proclaimed. Sasuke collapsed on the ground, being violently sick, before running to the door. Don't kill me please, he screamed. Itachi calmly walked up to the boy, grabbing hold of his shirt and turning him around to face him. Before, surprisingly, smiling at him and telling him, I'm not going to kill you, Sasuke. You knew nothing of this. I had hoped I'd be able to make it away without confronting you. I'm leaving the village, to join a group that wants to bring peace to the world. I refuse to stay here. There are only a select few people who I respect in this village. Who they are is information I'm not ready to divulge to you yet. Become strong, little brother, and when you feel ready, leave the village. I will find you and we shall talk again. Goodbye. I'm sorry. With that, Itachi struck Sasuke once more in the stomach, causing the boy to topple over unconscious. Itachi was already gone before his body had reached the floor. Streets of Konoha. Itachi was currently sprinting along the rooftops of Konoha. It should only take another 2 minutes for me to reach the gate, then I can. he was shook from his thoughts when an enormous chakra spike radiated around the area. What on earth was that? He decided to trace the chakra back to where it had first come from. He looked down from his vantage point. Haha, take that demon. One of the villagers screamed as they kicked him square in the chest, easily winding him. Naruto had stayed silent throughout the entire ordeal, deciding not to give them any satisfaction. He noticed they parted as a man came forward with an iron pipe in his hands. His eyes widened as he realized the man was going to use it on him. The man stepped forward with a smile on his face, and was about to bring the pipe down onto Naruto's legs when he felt something throw him back. His eyes widened as he coughed up blood, feeling his ribs shatter inside his chest. As he was flung back and into a wall, he looked up briefly to notice the entire group he was with had also been launched backwards. There were corpses everywhere, their arms and legs snapped in grotesque ways. He died a moment later. Itachi, who had been watching the ordeal, was about to intervene when he saw the man raise the pipe above his head. When he suddenly felt himself being pushed backwards by an unknown force, he had recovered quickly and gone down to street level to survey the carnage. He was shocked by what he saw. A small crater laid in the center of the street with Naruto lying in it, looking around dumbstruck by what had just happened. Itachi walked over to the boy. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Itachi was about to ask him if he was alright when he caught sight of the boy's eyes. What is this? This is impossible, he thought. That ripple-like pattern, I've read stories about it from scrolls in the library, I thought it was a myth. They were supposedly possessed by the Raikudo Sennin, god of shinobi. The Rinnegan. This boy, who exactly is he? Itachi was shocked by this new discovery. Naruto looked around. His vision was strange. He could see chakra, or at least that's what he thought it was. If he focused enough, he could see behind him. He noticed there was someone standing in front of him and he held his hands up to defend himself. Please don't hit me again. He had finally cracked, seeing what he'd just done. Itachi smiled at the boy. Naruto-kun, I'm not going to hurt you. I have a feeling the people who you killed families might though. Itachi thought about what he was going to ask the boy next and wondered if it was okay. He's got the eyes of God, I'm sure they'll let him join. He's not welcome here in this village anyway, ignorant fools. I'm leaving the village, would you like to join me, Naruto-kun? Itachi asked. To say the least, Naruto was shocked by what this man was asking him. He was also curious as to how he knew his name, but that would come later. He thought about what the man offered. Leaving the village. I'm not exactly welcome here, but still, what about Kakashi, Ji-san and Ero-sennin? I don't want to leave them. Naruto thought. Will I be able to come back and visit? Naruto innocently asked. Itachi smiled at the boy. I'm sure in a few years' time, you'll be back, he answered. Alright, should I get anything from my apartment before we leave? Naruto asked. Any food you wish to take, we'll be eating on the move, so nothing heavy. You will speak to no one. If you do encounter anyone, ignore them and keep running. I'll give you 10 minutes, meet me at the north gate. Itachi told him. Naruto simply nodded before sprinting back to his apartment. Luckily for him, he didn't encounter a soul. He quickly packed various snacks and a change of clothes before leaving the key on the table and closing the door behind him. At the north gate, Itachi was standing there, waiting for Naruto. He knew the boy would come, and his hopes were confirmed when Naruto came running around the corner. He skidded to a halt in front of him. Alright, let's going. Naruto said. Itachi merely nodded. I'm sure you're curious why I'm leaving the village. I'll explain them to you soon as I know we're safe. For now, follow me, he said before launching into the trees, Naruto following closely behind, easily keeping up with him. Just what else can those eyes do? Itachi thought to himself as he remembered the directions of the map he'd been given, telling him how to reach a Megakure from Konoha. 4 hours later. Naruto, let's stop for a little bit. I think we're far enough away from Konoha to stop without needing a constant lookout. I'd also like to ask you some questions, if that's okay. Itachi asked. Naruto stopped, catching his breath. before helping Itachi find a clearing where they could rest for the night. What supplies did you bring? Itachi asked him. Naruto opened his pack and showed Itachi what he'd brought. There was some slightly crushed onigiri and a few bottles of water. Itachi looked at him for a moment. It's to be expected that you didn't know what to bring. Go and gather some firewood and I'll prepare what food we have. I'm afraid we can't stay still for long, but I'd like you to answer those questions now. He told him. Naruto nodded and headed off into the forest. Within 5 minutes, Naruto had returned with some reasonably sized branches that looked like he'd snapped them in half, and plenty of smaller twigs. Itachi was quite impressed by this. Naruto, how did you know exactly what kind of things to collect? He inquired. Oh, I went to the library and read a lot about ninjas. I was going to enroll in the academy the day I turned 10, so I could prove to the villagers that I want to help them, not destroy them as they always seem to think, he replied sadly. I understand, Itachi replied, nodding his head slightly. Now Naruto, do you feel any different since what happened in the street? Itachi questioned. Naruto took a few moments before answering. Yeah, I feel great, but my eyesight has become all strange and distorted. I think I can see chakra. It looks odd. Around your body I can see these strange blue swirls. Do you have any idea of what they are? Naruto finished with a question. It's chakra, Naruto. You don't see anything else, just the swirls? Itachi asked. Naruto just nodded. I can only see the blue swirls. They're inside your body as well. Am I supposed to see something else? Itachi just shook his head. That's surprising. They can only see chakra. He thought. I want you to take a look at this. Itachi said as he handed Naruto his forehead protector. Look at your reflection. Naruto did as he was told and almost collapsed. What's happened to my eyes? He roared. Itachi smirked before speaking. It's called the Rinnegan, Naruto. It's a legendary dujutsu, said to be possessed by the man who discovered the true use of chakra and invented ninjutsu, the Raikudo Sennin. I don't know anything about it apart from the thing we've just learned, that you can see chakra. I'd also like to check something out when you've calmed down a bit more. Naruto was currently staring at his reflection on the forehead protector. He gradually began to accept the way he looked, before moving the forehead protector closer to his eyes. Hey, they look pretty cool, he thought to himself. Right, let me get this straight, I have a legendary dujutsu, called the Rinnegan. Itachi merely nodded. It was said to be possessed by the man who invented ninjutsu. Itachi nodded once again. Well, I've got to say, that's awesome, Naruto shouted as he started laughing. Itachi had a slight unnoticeable smile on his face. It's quite ironic really, a boy who was constantly beaten and ostracized for something that was out of his control, will likely become one of the strongest ninja of all time. Itachi stated matter-of-factly. Naruto stopped laughing after he heard what Itachi had just said, and just sat there for a few moments with his mouth agape. This caused Itachi to smirk and added, even if I reach my full potential, if you Naruto are to reach yours, I will not be able to defeat you. I doubt anyone in the world will be able to stand against you. However, don't think this will just fall in your lap, you will have to train for many years to achieve that level. Naruto merely nodded before remembering what Itachi had said earlier. What is it you wanted to check out, Itachi? He asked. Oh yes, I just wanted to see if your new eyes could detect barrier jutsu, as that will be extremely effective if you are sent on reconnaissance missions. Step back a few feet and let me use one. Tell me if you noticed anything different. Itachi said. Naruto nodded and stepped back. Kekai. Tengai Hojin, Itachi shouted after performing a few hand seals. Naruto noticed it immediately. I can see it, it's some sort of dome surrounding you. Itachi was surprised. I see, so you can see barriers as well. That's interesting. Naruto just smiled before sitting down again. Oh yay, Itachi, why were you leaving the village? Naruto asked. Naruto noticed Itachi flinch at the question before he settled down on a log, and gave his answer. I wiped out the Uchiha clan, he replied simply. Naruto was shocked at this, not expecting such a blunt answer. They were planning a coup, and were attempting to take over Konoha. If they went ahead and did that, other countries would most likely get involved and attack Konoha without warning or repercussion. You haven't seen war, you don't know what it's like to see hundreds of people dead around you, it's terrifying. I did what I had to prevent a disaster. Itachi told them. I did, however, leave my younger brother Sasuke alive. He will join the organization we're going to when he feels he is ready. He knows of the coup, it'll be up to him whether or not he accepts it. If he doesn't and decides to hunt me down, I'll kill him. He added before beginning to pack up his supplies and putting out the fire. Come, we have at least another day of traveling ahead of us, we've wasted enough time as it is. Itachi said as he slung his backpack over his shoulders. He quickly stamped out the fire, spreading dirt over where it had been. They're sure to notice this, but we have, at least, an 8-hour lead. Itachi thought. Naruto nodded before standing up and dusting himself down. Within moments Itachi had launched into the trees, with Naruto fresh on his trail. The next morning, in Konoha. Hokage-sama, something terrible has happened. A Chunin rushed into his office. Yes, I already know about the Uchiha massacre. I also know that he's taken Uzumaki Naruto with him. Leave me, Hiruzen replied without even turning toward the person who'd entered his office. Huh, so it's true then, a voice from outside the window called out. Yes, apparently the villagers decided to attack Naruto yesterday evening. Naruto killed them and joined Itachi. Hiruzen answered the voice. Jiraiya then jumped up and landed on the windowsill. He killed them, you say? Was it the Kyuubi? He asked Hiruzen. Hiruzen shook his head. No, they were killed by some kind of technique I've never seen before. It seemed like their organs were pushed back. The force must have been immense since all of their ribcages are shattered and there are several bodies with severely broken bones. Jiraiya's ears perked up at this. I see. Would you mind if I had a look at the bodies? That description reminded me of something I've seen once before. Jiraiya asked. Hiruzen merely nodded his head, before handing Jiraiya an access pass to the hospital morgue. I'll speak to you about it later. Jiraiya said before jumping out of the window and making his way towards the hospital. Morgue. This is exactly the same as before. The bruising on the chest, the organs scattered around the chest cavity like someone's taken them all out and put them back in however they please. Well, Uzumaki Naruto, you certainly are an interesting child. I look forward to our next meeting. Jiraiya said to himself as he walked out of the hospital, heading towards the Hokage Tower to report his findings. Hospital. Meanwhile, in a private room, Uchiha Sasuke was lying in his bed thinking about his brother had said, they were planning a coup. Why would they do something like that? We were the strongest clan in Konoha. Now that I think about it, father had been acting rather distant lately, and Itachi was acting strange as well. Itachi, he theoretically saved my life, I need to think about this more. He sighed before lying down and dozing off. Near a megacure. Okay, we're nearly there, Itachi spoke, he could barely be heard over the sound of the pouring rain. The sooner we get there, the better, Naruto grumbled. A megacure. A voice shouted out. What is it? A gentle female voice asked. Itachi has arrived, but it seems he's brought someone else along with him, their chakra is almost double mine. The voice replied. What? How is that possible? The female voice asked worriedly. I don't know, Conan, go and meet Itachi, it seems they all entered the village at the same time, so once you find him, I'm sure you'll encounter the other two. The voice told her. Hi, Nagato, Conan replied. Be careful, he warned as she was making her way out. She merely nodded. Entrance to a megacure. Halt. What is your business here? The gate guard questioned. My name is Uchiha Itachi. This boy here is my traveling companion. We seek entry into your village. Our reasons are our own. Itachi replied. You will state your reasons for being here, or you will be treated as an intruder. The gate guard had already raised a kunai to defend himself. Stand down, Masuyo, Leave them to me. A woman had appeared behind him. Konan-sama, I will do as you say. Forgive me. He bowed his head quickly before returning back to his post. My name is Konan. I am an emissary for the leader of this village. State your business. Konan told them firmly. My name is Uchiha Itachi. Your leader is expecting me. These two people here are my traveling companions, and I request they be allowed in as well. Itachi told her. Konan knew of Itachi's arrival, she just had to confirm it was him. She then took a glance at the other boy, he had his head turned around as he was looking around the village. She could feel power radiating off him, she cleared her throat to gain his attention. He turned towards her and she froze on the spot. What? This cannot be, he's got the same eyes as Nagato. I see, this is the chakra he was talking about, he'll be a worthy addition to Akatsuki, perhaps even stronger than Nagato. She thought to herself. He grinned at her and said, Hey, my name's Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet you. She suddenly felt a faint smile tug at her lips, before she pushed it to the back of her mind and dropped back into her serious demeanor. Hi, now come with me, I'm sure our leader will want to meet and greet you both personally. She stated. She nodded to Masuyo, and he responded, allowing the three of them passage and recording their names within the journal on the desk in front of him. They walked through the gates into the city of Omegakure itself. All three of them were taken aback by how the city looked, although only two of them showed a surprised look upon their faces. Itachi remained stoic as ever. Whoa, this place is amazing, Naruto spoke, voice filled with awe as he glanced upwards, his sight filled with towering skyscrapers. It was at this time, Naruto had cast his gaze upon Konan, and noticed what she was wearing. Hey, Konan-san, I like your cloak, he said. She just carried on walking, neither of them could see the faint smile on her face. They continued on through the city, with Naruto making stupid remarks almost constantly throughout the short journey. They soon reached the entrance to the highest tower in the city and Konan stopped abruptly in front of it. She turned and spoke to the two of them. We're here, through this door lies your future, are you willing to proceed? She was surprised by how quickly Naruto responded. Satisfied, she gathered some chakra into her hand, and placed it across the barrier in front of the door. Once the barrier had finished dispersing, the doors opened themselves and they stepped inside. They walked into a strange foyer, noticing there was no one there. They passed through it and walked up the stairway on the other side. Reaching the top of the stairs, they stepped out onto a balcony, noticing a figure standing in front of them, leaning over the balcony railing, observing the village. Greetings Itachi, I see you've decided to join us after all. The man spoke. Itachi replied with a swift, Hi. But it seems you've brought someone unexpected. He said. Hey. Naruto shouted out, only for Itachi to grab his shoulder, turning him around to face him and shaking his head. Naruto soon quietened down. He will be a powerful ally, that I can assure you. Itachi replied. Yes, I can sense that boy's chakra, it's stronger than any I've ever felt before, even my own. He continued whilst still looking out across the village. But have you ever felt pain before? Do you know what it's like to feel like the whole world is against you, having everything you've ever loved brutally torn away from you, in front of your very eyes? He asked. This time he turned around. Do you know what it's like He stopped dead as he opened his eyes and caught sight of Naruto. Quote. What? This cannot be. He spoke quietly. Hey, your eyes look like mine. Naruto shouted. This boy, his eyes are the same as mine, yet he possesses almost twice my chakra. This is impossible, yet I'm staring right at him. Nagato thought to himself. What is your name, boy? He asked him. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto replied. I see. He thought about what he was about to say for a moment. Very well, Konan, take him to an empty room, I shall be along once I've conversed with Itachi. He said. Konan merely nodded while gesturing for Naruto to follow her. Itachi nodded once before speaking. You should know something else, he's the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. This caused Pain to freeze before turning to Itachi, gesturing for him to continue, but as I'm sure you've noticed his chakra pathways haven't adapted to the Kyuubi's chakra, it seems to me that the Rinnegan has suppressed its influence. You could theoretically remove the Kyuubi from him, without killing him in the process as his body doesn't rely on it. Itachi continued. As for Pain, he was beaten daily in Konoha, his apartment needlessly vandalized. There were a select few who appreciated him, I'm sure you know of them. It was Sarutobi Hiruzen, Hitaki Kakashi and Jiraiya. The rest of the village is most likely celebrating his departure. Itachi finished. I see, Pain replied. He will be a fine ninja. I will have to oversee his training here though, the Rinnegan will crush him if he's not prepared for it. I shall introduce him and yourself to the rest of the members tomorrow. I have a plan that will require all of you. He stopped, seemingly thinking. He turned back to face Itachi before continuing. Now, I'm sure you'd like to get some rest from your journey. Konoha will never think to look here, so you're safe for the time being. Pain spoke. Itachi merely nodded before following him out of the room. They soon reached a door. You can stay in here for now, he said, before walking off, leaving Itachi outside the room. Naruto was currently sitting on his bed, bouncing up and down, with Konan standing by the door, watching him. The door opened and Pain stepped through. He glanced at Konan, before stepping in the room fully, and speaking to Naruto. Naruto, I would like to speak to you about something, it's important. He told him. All right, Naruto answered, stopping his bouncing and sitting the bed properly. So be it. I'm going to tell you about those eyes of yours, as Itachi has most likely already told you. They are called the Rinnegan, and were possessed by the so-called god of shinobi, the Raikudo Sennin. Naruto merely nodded, before Pain continued. What he most likely didn't tell you are the benefits of having such eyes. First, you possess all 6 of the chakra elements, allowing you to perform almost any technique you wish. Second, they provide you with a huge amount of chakra just by awakening them. I won't ask what happened to cause this. However, it seems you had a huge amount of chakra to begin with, so your levels are now the highest I have ever seen. Naruto sat there in silence, taking it all in. There's something I want to ask you. Before you awakened the Rinnegan, did you have any other episodes? Fits of rage where you'd black out and wake up, not being able to remember what had happened? Naruto shook his head. No, this is the first time it's ever happened. I see, Itachi was right, there's no trace of the Kyuubi's chakra at all, even on his stomach, where the seal of Jinchuriki usually is. We may be able to remove it from him without killing him. It'd be a tremendous waste if he were to die. Nagato thought. I also know you're the container of the Kyuubi. This caused Naruto to visibly flinch. However, we may be able to remove it from you. Normally this would kill you, but it seems like the Rinnegan has suppressed its influence from birth, therefore your body has not become accustomed to its chakra, so it's just sitting there inside you. Almost separate from you. Pain finished. Naruto sat there for a moment, he looked down at his hands and clenched his fists. He nodded to himself before glancing back up and saying, I'd like to risk it, I just want to be seen as me. I understand, tomorrow I will introduce you to the rest of Akatsuki and we shall begin the sealing from there. They both nodded. Before Naruto could open his mouth, Pain had already begun answering his question. Your training, Naruto, will consist of me teaching you the various techniques of the Rinnegan, however, I will only teach them to you once I see you can handle them. I'll have the rest of Akatsuki teach you as many elemental techniques as possible. We'll also discuss taijutsu, but all of this will come later. For now, I'm sure you'd like to rest. Come, Konan. Naruto merely nodded before Pain and Konan left the room, leaving him alone. Naruto merely laid back on his bed before saying to himself, well, that was some birthday. Point the M16 my granddad used in Nam, and force you to. Naruto was currently sitting in a meditative position in the center of an enormous statue, 2 giant hands to the left and right of him, behind him a face with an unsettling expression, one of extreme pain, with a blindfold covering its eyes. There were 9 eye holes on it, he noticed, all of them shut. As the essence of the Kyuubi was pulled from his stomach, he felt a bit strange. Surprisingly, there was no pain. He was slowly becoming tired, however. He thought about his introduction to the group earlier in that day. Flashback. Naruto was woken up by a swift knocking on their door. 5 minutes later, he emerged to see Pain, Konan and Itachi waiting for them. Naruto noticed Itachi was already wearing an Akatsuki cloak. Hey, when do I get one of those cloaks? Naruto asked. When I deem you strong enough. Pain replied simply. Now follow us, we're going to introduce you to the rest of the organization. Naruto merely nodded before following the others down a staircase. They all stopped in front of a door before Pain pushed it open and entered. Naruto noticed 5 figures in front of them, seemingly involved in light conversation with each other. As they stepped forward, they stopped their conversations and turned to look at them. We have one new member and another promising recruit. Pain announced to the gathered individuals. Itachi, you will be partnered with Kisame. Itachi and Kisame merely nodded. This here is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. We're going to extract it shortly. We believe that because he possesses the same eyes as me, the Rinnegan, the Kyuubi has been suppressed, thus we can extract it from his body without killing him. After that has been performed, I want you all to train him in various elemental techniques. I will be training him in the use of the Rinnegan's abilities. Pain finished speaking. Naruto, who was feeling rather uncomfortable, merely stepped forward and bowed, causing Kisame to laugh out loud. Haha, you don't have to be so formal, kid. This comment caused Naruto to look up, grin and rub the back of his head sheepishly. Kisame grinned before introducing himself. I'm Hoshigaki Kisame. This sinister-looking fellow to my right is Orochimaru. Orochimaru remained impassive towards Naruto, instead keeping his eyes focused on Itachi. Uchiha Itachi, this is a perfect opportunity. I'd consider using Naruto-kun here for my next body, but if his eyes can suppress the Kyuubi, I stand no chance. Orochimaru thought, ending with a grim expression on his face. Anyway, the guy standing next to him is Sasori. He's Orochimaru's partner. Apparently they make a good team, but I've yet to see it. Kisame joked, earning a snort from Sasori and a glare from Orochimaru. Kisame chuckled before continuing with his self-imposed introduction. This man here, he pointed to Kakuzu, his name is Kakuzu, you do well not to get on his bad side, or he'll most likely kill you. On the bright side though, he's probably the one who can teach you the most about the elements. There's one more of us, but I think he's out on an assignment at the moment. I'm sure you'll recognize him when you see him. His name is Zetsu. Kisame finished. Naruto merely bowed once more, before Pain caught everyone's attention with a single hand seal. The genjutsu surrounding the room was suddenly dispelled, revealing a large cavern, a grotesque statue in the center of it. A blindfolded face and upper torso were coming out of the ground, an expression of pain across the face, whilst 2 hands sprouted on the sides, chains linking the wrists together. Naruto gasped at the sight of it. Before Pain spoke up, Naruto, we're going to seal the Kyuubi now. If you would like to go and sit in the center of that circle there. He pointed to a small circle on the floor. Naruto nodded and went to sit down. The rest of the group shunshined up onto their designated fingers. Let's begin the sealing, Pain told them, each of them forming the ram seal. Naruto suddenly felt very odd. Flashback end. Naruto decided to give into unconsciousness, leaving him lying on the ground with the red chakra flowing out of him. 3 days later. Konan, check him, Pain ordered. Konan shunshined down from her finger, and landed next to Naruto. Pressing her index and middle fingers against her neck, she looked up to Pain and nodded before saying, it worked, he's still alive, although he'll most likely need a lot of rest. How the hell is he still alive? This is the work of the Shinigami and a seal of a master. Could it be because of some imperfection that allowed him to survive? We took a gamble and it somehow paid off, I can't believe it. Nagato thought, before regaining his composure. So be it. Pain said before shunshinin down next to Naruto. Kisame, get down here and take Naruto to his room. What? Kisame was startled by this sudden order, however, judging by the look in his leader's eyes, he was going to have to do it. Shunshinin down next to the boy, he picked him up and slung him over his shoulder. Kisame merely kicked the door of Naruto's room open, and placed the boy down on his before leaving. 2 days later. Naruto groaned as he slowly opened his eyes. Where am I? Oh, that's right, the Kyuubi. He said. He heard his stomach rumble. Man, I'm so hungry. Good morning. Kisame shouted, not even bothering to knock or even open the door properly. He had in fact kicked the door so hard, it was barely hanging onto its hinges. Naruto just looked oddly at him. He noticed this and smiled a toothy grin back at him. This always seemed to wipe any expression of his face, he noted, most likely because of his jagged teeth. Leader Sama wants to see you. Get dressed and be upstairs in 5 minutes, he said before leaving almost as quickly as he'd burst in the room. Naruto barely had time to nod in acknowledgement. 5 minutes later, Naruto was dressed. He had been given new clothes, as his casual clothes would just wear away with training, or so he was told. Naruto was given a mesh shirt to wear underneath a black jacket. The interior of the jacket was a dark red, much like the color of the Akatsuki cloaks, minus the clouds. He also wore standard Junin trousers and ninja sandals. He walked upstairs into a meeting area of sorts, only to see that Kakuzu, Sasori and Orochimaru were nowhere to be seen. Pain was the first one to sense his presence and turned around to greet him. Ah, Naruto, I trust you're feeling better. He asked. Naruto simply nodded, not wanting to draw unnecessary attention to himself. His stomach was practically screaming for attention. Good. We shall begin your training then. Come with me, Pain said, before swiftly turning towards the door and walking out. Naruto and Pain had entered a huge library just off the side of the meeting room. We're going to start on chakra control first, and I'll be teaching you the Bunshin, Kage Bunshin, Henjin Kawarimi no Jutsu first. After you've completed those, I would like to talk to you about your Rinnegan. Pain said. It doesn't matter how long it takes, from 1 week to a year, I won't give you a moment to rest unless I see that you deserve it. He continued. Naruto nodded. Now let's begin. 6 months later. In the last 6 months, Naruto's chakra control had exceeded all expectations. Naruto had mastered Kage Bunshin, Henjin Kawarimi. He couldn't perform Bunshin, however. Pain put it down to having simply too much chakra. He said the forbidden version was superior to it anyway. Naruto, stop for the moment and come over here. Pain called out to him. They were currently outside while Naruto sat with 100 Kage Bunshins, each practicing chakra control. Pain had stated that he didn't need to work on Henjin Kawarimi, saying they'd be mastered to a level not many people can reach. Kage Bunshin, he'd explained that it would help speed up his training hugely, since every clone, when dispelled, will transmit everything it's learned back to the creator. Naruto stood up and walked over to where Pain was standing. I want to show you a technique. Itachi was describing to me what happened the night he found you. He said he felt himself being forced back. What did you feel and see? Pain asked. Naruto thought about it for a moment before answering. I don't know, I can't really remember. I felt like I was falling for a split second before I hit the ground and then everything around suddenly launched backwards. Pain nodded. Yes, that sounds familiar, like the first time I awoke my Rinnegan. I have named the technique you used. Naruto looked on excitedly. It's called Shinra Tensei, Divine Judgment. It's something only users of the Rinnegan can use, even the Sharingan cannot copy this technique. You can focus it into your hands and apply much more force to the technique. Using it like this can easily shatter wood, bone and stone. It can also used on a much larger scale. You should never use that unless completely necessary, as it will shorten your lifespan. Naruto nodded, taking it all in. There's one other drawback to the technique. Once you've used it, it can't be used again for the next 5 seconds. I will demonstrate it now. Step back. Naruto did as he told and watched as Pain moved to stand in front of the closest building. He held out his arm and spoke, "Shinra Tensei." Naruto's eyes widened as he watched a large hole appear in the side of building accompanied by a thunderous bang. "Now you try it. Just hold out your arm, focus chakra to your eyes in the palm of your hand and release when you think it's strong enough. The more chakra you focus onto your palm, the stronger the technique will be. There's another thing I'd like to mention, you don't have to be looking at the target, just focus chakra to your eyes and palm and think about forcing something away." Pain explained. Naruto nodded, before moving in front of the building. "You don't have to call out the name." Pain added. Naruto merely nodded once again. He stared forward at the wall, held out his arm focusing just enough chakra. He released the technique only for another hole to appear in the wall. Pain looked on, impressed. The hole itself was only a bit smaller than the one he himself had made. "Good. Now you can't use Kage Bunshin to practice this technique, so I suggest you forego perfecting your chakra control. It's easily already low Junin level, so just focus on Shinra Tensei, until I see fit that you've advanced enough to move on to the next stage of your training," Pain said, getting a nod from Naruto before he shinned out of the area. As soon as Pain had left, Naruto burst out into a wide grin. 6 months later. Naruto had been training extremely hard for the past 6 months. He was constantly practicing Shinra Tensei. He'd almost perfected it according to Pain, however he wouldn't let him try the larger version. Naruto had been decided to explore a megacure in his rather limited free time. He'd discovered they had a fantastic ramen stand, not quite Ichiraku but still impressive, according to his standards anyway. He was also happy that none of the villagers ever glared at him or called him names. Everywhere he looked there were kind smiles. He liked it here. Today, Naruto was exploring the upper floor of the city. He'd found a blacksmith's and decided to take a look around. He entered the shop to find various weapons hanging on the walls, some of which he'd never seen before. "What the hell is that? A scythe? What kind of ninja uses that?" Naruto thought to himself. He was busy looking around when a stocky-looking man appeared from the back. "Ah, good day, young sir. What may I interest you in?" he asked. Naruto jumped when heard the man's loud voice and turned around to greet him. His eyes are a little strange, must be a ninja. Katsuo thought. Hi, my name's Naruto, I'm just looking around, do you have any kunai or shuriken?" Naruto asked. "Ahaha, of course Naruto. You may call me Katsuo." The blacksmith roared. "Here, I shall show you." He stepped out from behind the counter and walked over to the other side of the shop. "I've not seen you around here before," Katsuo said. I've been here for over a year, but I've been training as a ninja so I've been busy," Naruto responded. I see, well take a look around, if you need anything I'll be in the back," Katsuo said, walking off. Naruto stood there for a moment, eyeing each piece of equipment equally. He eventually picked up a small custom kunai. He noticed it didn't have a finger grip at the end, it was just flat, the blade was also thinner than average kunai. He tossed it between his hands, measuring the weight. Happy with it, he decided to make a request of the owner. "Katsuo-san," he shouted. The large man appeared from the back, a large smile on his face. "Would you creating 40 of these for me? I don't know when I'll be back, but I really like them," Naruto pleaded. "A custom order I'm glad you like them, of course I'll hold them for you. Next time you come in, I'll have the order filled and I'll give you the price then as well," Katsuo told him. Naruto merely grinned before placing the kunai back on the shelf, and strolling out of the shop. Naruto, what's your last name?" Katsuo shouted after him, baffled by the boy's display. "Oh well, I'm sure he'll be back, I'll just write Naruto as the name for now, I doubt there's many called that anyway." Meanwhile, Naruto was looking for somewhere to get some lunch. He passed by a noodle stand and decided he'd try these today. He walked through the curtain and sat down at one of the stools placed in front of the counter. An elderly gentleman turned around and handed him a menu. Naruto took it from him and spent 5 minutes perusing it. Having trouble choosing what type to eat, he decided on kitsune soba, getting a happy nod from the owner. Ah, that's one of my favorites. The man told him. Naruto sat there for around 5 minutes, wondering what kind of training he'd do tomorrow. The thought excited him. The bowl of noodles was placed down in front of him. Naruto glanced down at it and eyed it hungrily. He snapped his chopsticks and dug in. The old man merely laughed as he watched Naruto struggle with the deep-fried tofu that floated in the broth. Naruto eventually managed to finish his meal, paying the owner and leaving the stand. He decided to head back to the complex. Even though it was his day off, he figured it wouldn't hurt to train some more. Naruto spent the rest of his day sparring with his clones and practicing his chakra control. At around 9:30 in the evening he dragged himself to bed. He opened the door to his room and collapsed onto his bed, sleep taking him almost immediately. Naruto had been woken by Konan in the morning. She waited outside the door for him to get dressed. He appeared about 2 minutes later and followed her down into the main meeting room. Naruto walked into the room and noticed Pain, the chakra signature next to him. However, he recognized, but just couldn't put a name to it. Naruto, come here. Pain beckoned him over. You've been introduced to Orochimaru once before. I'm going to have him teach you various earth and wind element techniques. He said. Naruto just nodded. Well, Naruto-kun, shall we begin? Orochimaru asked him, a smirk placed on his lips. Naruto looked at him for a moment, before breaking out into a grin and saying, yay. Naruto followed Orochimaru outside into one of the various training grounds behind the complex. It was raining quite heavily as they stood in the center of the training ground. Okay, Naruto-kun, the first jutsu I'm going to teach will be Futon, Daitapa wind release, great breakthrough. The hand seals are tiger, ox, dog, rabbit, snake. Would you like to try it? Orochimaru explained. Naruto merely nodded, before flying through the hand seals, surprising Orochimaru at his speed, before shouting, Futon, Daitapa, and producing a huge blast of wind, carving a crater into the ground and slamming into the wall, causing a large crack to appear down it. That was very impressive, Naruto-kun. You might need to tone down the amount of chakra you put into the jutsu, however. Orochimaru told him. Naruto looked at him, confused, but I didn't put much chakra into that attack at all. Orochimaru was, to say the least, shocked. This boy, who on earth is he? He thought to himself. Well, Naruto-kun, I'd like you to perfect that jutsu over the next few days. I shall then return and show you a defensive ninjutsu. Orochimaru then performed the ram seal before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Fancy idiot, Naruto thought. I may as well see what the technique is like when I imbue it with even more chakra. A thunderous bang was heard, and Kisame, being the only member in the complex, quickly ran outside to see what it was. He wasn't that surprised to find an enormous crater with Naruto lying at the bottom, the training ground completely destroyed. Oi, Naruto! Kisame shouted. Naruto merely shifted his eyes towards him. Maybe you shouldn't use that technique much. Naruto merely laughed, before standing up and climbing out of the crater. I don't think there's much else I can do with that technique anymore. I'll just go and practice my chakra control, he told Kisame, before calmly walking back inside like nothing had happened. Kisame turned to look at the crater before shrugging his shoulders and following Naruto inside. When Orochimaru returned, he had been informed of what had happened after he left, and figured he wouldn't berate Naruto for not practicing the technique, considering the amount of damage it had done. He found Naruto sitting on his bed, in a meditative position, so he decided to observe him for a little bit. He was radiating chakra. Orochimaru was fascinated. Naruto felt the presence as soon as they had entered the room. He didn't know who it was as they were masking their chakra, and he knew they must be incredibly skilled if they can hide their chakra, even in front of his eyes. He decided not to wait to find out who it was. His eyes snapped open with his hand already held up. He called out, "Shinra Tensai," only to hear a shout of, "Shit!" and a loud crash. He looked around the room, noticing the large hole that was now in his wall. He looked to his right and saw who it had been. Orochimaru was standing there with a smirk on his face. "Bravo, Naruto-kun, you've changed considerably over the course of this year. When you were first introduced to us, your guard was constantly down, and any one of us could have killed you in a second," he said. Naruto wasn't surprised at this at all. "But now you've started to train those eyes of yours, you're slowly becoming a worthy adversary. I look forward to the day you are officially introduced into Akatsuki." Orochimaru finished. Naruto just grinned. "Your defense is already quite formidable, especially with that Shinra Tensai attack. You could most likely push away plenty of the larger jutsus, however some of them won't be that simple, so I'm going to teach you a jutsu that requires considerable chakra control, which I know you have. Come," Orochimaru stated as he walked out the door. Naruto followed him, sighing at the hole in his wall, knowing he was going to be tasked with fixing it up later. They were in a different training ground this time, after Pain had made Kakuzu fill in the hole with an earth jutsu. Naruto had stayed clear of Kakuzu ever since he'd found out. "Okay, Naruto-kun, this is an earth element defense ninjutsu. It's an incredibly versatile jutsu. I will show you an example. It's called Doden Doryukatsu, Earth Release, Earth Flow Divide," Orochimaru explained. He ran through the seals incredibly quickly, much faster than Naruto had expected, and slammed his hand into the ground, holding it there. Naruto noticed his fingers moving slightly. His mind was taken off this when a large clump of earth began rising up, before splitting in half and then into quarters, before Orochimaru released his hand from the ground and admired his handiwork. Orochimaru smirked at Naruto's odd expression before explaining, "There are things called dragon veins flowing underground, and you can manipulate them using that jutsu. You pour your chakra into them, then utilizing perfect chakra control, you can create chasms of any size. The formation of the ground is completely up to you." The seals are rabbit, boar, rat, horse, tiger, snake. "Now show me." Naruto performed the hand seals and called out, "Doden Doryukatsu," before slamming his hand on the ground. He channeled chakra into the veins. He was surprised he could feel them. It must have something to do with the jutsu, he thought. He suddenly lost control and the jutsu failed, resulting in a large earthen pillar to rise out of the ground. He immediately cancelled the jutsu and sighed. "Wow, you can't lose concentration or something like that happens he said, more to himself than Orochimaru. Orochimaru just smirked. "Yes, you have to be careful. It's best used while you're in a group and need to defend more than one person at once. It can also be used to separate enemy teams apart and destroy their camps before you attack," Orochimaru explained. "I'll be back in a week and a half. I want you to have made some noticeable progress when I return." He then left. Throughout the next week and a half, the training ground where Naruto had been training had to be remodeled several times, thanks to Naruto either losing control or funneling too much chakra into the jutsu. The day Orochimaru returned, Naruto had prepared a question to ask him. "Hey Orochimaru," he turned towards the boy, who took it as a signal to continue, "where do you keep going?" Orochimaru merely cracked a smile that sent a chill down Naruto's spine. "I've been busy," he said simply, clearly not in the mood for explaining. "Kukuku, soon my kinjutsu will be ready and I'll have access to almost every jutsu in the world. I haven't seen Itachi in a while, but next time we meet, I'm sure it will be memorable," Orochimaru thought. "Now Naruto-kun, I have a test for you. I'm going to summon 2 snakes. I want you to use the 2 jutsu I have taught you and cage Bunshin to force them to dismiss themselves," Orochimaru said, lifting up the sleeve on his left arm, before nipping his thumb and smearing the blood across the strange tattoo that covered his forearm. "Kuchio's number jutsu," he spoke, causing 2 snakes slightly larger than himself to puff into existence next to him. "Kill him," he said simply, before shunshining backwards to observe the battle. Naruto formed the familiar hand seal and created 4 cage buncheons. He made 2 of them charge the snakes, while he had the last one cover him, in case one of the snakes got through. He quickly shot through some more hand seals before shouting, Doden, Doryukatsu, and causing a large bank to appear but a few meters away from the snakes. They didn't notice, however, as they were engaging his first 2 cage buncheons. The snakes were too busy fending off kunai strikes to notice the real Naruto jump onto the top of the bank. He launched into the air from the top of the bank, formed some hand seals and shouted, Futon. Datappa. The huge burst of air destroyed the cage buncheons and forced the snakes to the ground. Shallow cuts could be seen all over their skin. As soon as Naruto landed, he pulled out 2 kunai and sprinted towards the snakes, ready to kill them. Orochimaru decided enough was enough, so he manually dispelled the snakes. This boy is far stronger than I give him credit for. His training with Leader Sama must have beaten some tactics into him. It's a shame I won't be able to take his body, he'd make a fine replacement. Kukuku, Itachi's will suit me fine however. Orochimaru thought. Naruto walked over to Orochimaru, who congratulated him on his clever usage of cage buncheon to distract the enemy while he focused on the main offense. He handed him 2 scrolls before telling him, we won't meet each other again, Naruto-kun, goodbye. He performed the ram seal and disappeared in same way he had when they'd first met. What was that all about? Oh well, I'd better check out these scrolls. Naruto thought to himself before he unfurled the first one and read the name of the jutsu. Scroll. Futon. Shinkugyoku. Wind release. Vacuum sphere. This jutsu is ranked A class. This is a short to mid-range jutsu. To perform, form the dog seal. Before taking a deep breath and exhale, you should feel the balls of chakra form inside your mouth. Exhale them rapidly for the best results. The amount of chakra you put into each ball will affect how much physical damage they do. A small amount of chakra will merely hit the target, most likely bruise them but do nothing more. A large amount, however, can penetrate the skin like a thrown kunai, therefore proving fatal if aimed at the right areas. End scroll. Hey, this sounds like a promising jutsu. It looks a bit troublesome to use though. The exhaling part sounds like it will take some getting used to. I'll keep that one for later. I'll check the other scroll. Naruto thought. He rolled the first scroll back up and placed into a side pocket of his jacket. He carefully untied the small string, keeping the next scroll rolled up, before it fully unfurled in his lap. He picked it up and began to read. Scroll. Futon. Shinkaha. Wind release. Vacuum wave. This jutsu is ranked A class. This is a short to mid-range jutsu. To perform, form the dog seal. Before taking a deep breath, spinning around while you exhale, the chakra will form a blade sharp enough to cut a person in half if enough force is applied. The longer you spin for, the wider the arc, thus reducing the attack power of the jutsu. End scroll. This one looks a little easier to perform than the first. I'll begin practicing them tomorrow. Naruto thought, smiling as he made his way back to his room, happy that he'd got more techniques to learn. The next day, when Naruto woke up the next day, he decided he wasn't going to use Kage Bunshin to learn these new wind jutsu. They seemed far too dangerous to have even 5 clones try it. He thought about which one to try first. He eventually decided on Futon, Shinkaha, as it seemed easier to use than Futon, Shinkugyoku. He was heading downstairs when Konan caught him. Naruto, Pain has suggested I test you today, follow me please. She told him. He merely nodded and followed her down to one of the training grounds. They stepped into the center. Naruto noticed that Konan formed a paper clone, before the real one stepped back. Naruto, I want you to defeat my paper clone. It will be a good training exercise, and grant you some much-needed battle experience. Konan told him. Naruto stood there for a moment, thinking over what Konan had told him. Alright, let's do it. Naruto said. Konan's clone merely nodded before several pieces of paper were torn from her body and flew at Naruto. Kami Shuriken, paper shuriken, the clone called out. Naruto barely had time to react, just barely diving out the way. He glanced at the paper shuriken, noticing how deeply they were embedded into the ground. What? It's just paper, but they can do that much damage. Naruto thought, standing up, quickly forming 3 Kage Bunshin, ordering them to charge at Konan. Konan noticed this. She also noticed the real Naruto staying back. Suiden. Suihachi, water release. Water wave palm, she called out, aiming a steady jet of water from her palm, dispersing the 3 clones in front of her. The smoke briefly obscured her view. Naruto used this to his advantage and launched through it, expecting his blow to connect. He merely fell out of the smoke and crashed into the ground. Looking up, he glanced around and saw that the clone was standing behind him now. He stood up quickly, running at the clone with a kunai drawn. He swung at her in a wide arc, only for her to catch his arm, look at his face for a moment before punching him in the face. As she did so, she let go of his arm, and jumped backwards. Shit. Naruto thought, standing back up once again, rubbing his sore cheek. Where is she now? He looked around and caught sight of her. She was merely standing there anticipating his next attack. He decided to try ninjutsu against her. He quickly formed 2 more Kage Bunshin and ordered them to distract her. He watched as Konan engaged the 2 clones in close combat and quickly ran through some hand seals. He jumped forwards as he finished the final one and called out, Futon. Daitapa, the force of the jutsu forcing the Kage Bunshins to disperse. Konan's clone had been expecting this jutsu, just not as powerful as it was. The paper clone dispersed under the immense pressure of the wind, the various cuts appearing on the body not helping. Naruto landed on his feet, taking several deep breaths. He noticed Konan walk out from the complex and over to him. Well done, Naruto, however you are far too reckless. You're lucky it was only a spar. My clone could have killed at any time, particularly when you jumped through the smoke of your Kage Bunshins. You could have also been killed when you charged me with your kunai. You need to work on other things than just your ninjutsu. I have several books about tactics and how to act during a heated battle. I shall bring them to your room later this evening. Konan told him. Naruto merely nodded, before thanking her for the books and leaving to go and get some lunch. Konan was left there. You can come out, you know, she said. Maybe you should introduce yourself to him. No, Zetsu replied. He'd either bully me for looking strange, or run away scared. He joked. You're worried about being bullied by a 10-year-old. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, Konan replied sarcastically. Also, he won't run away. He's far stronger than he lets on. Hey, you're telling me, he seems to have unprecedented potential. It's no wonder Pain himself is training him. Zetsu said. Konan just nodded. He'll be quite formidable when he's older, Zetsu's darker half commented. Konan nodded once again before walking off. Naruto had gotten some dango for lunch. He enjoyed testing the various flavors. He wasn't sure which his favorite was yet, so he decided to have a stick of each. He'd returned to the training ground. He was currently sitting down studying the scrolls that Orochimaru had given him. He told himself he'd be fine learning Futon Shinkaha without any help, but realized he would need help getting to grips with Futon Shinkugyoku. He decided to ask Itachi about it, knowing the man was currently in the compound. He ran inside and found him poring over a scroll in the meeting room. Naruto walked over to him and asked him how he'd go about performing the jutsu. Itachi told him it'd be wise to exhale them slowly, but forcefully to begin with, then as he became better with the jutsu, he could increase the speed he exhaled them at. He nodded along as he listened, mentally slapping himself for not thinking of that himself. He added that it would require immense concentration to spit them in such quick succession. He knew now that he'd have to study those books Konan had mentioned thoroughly, realizing just how far he still has to go. Naruto knew he wasn't that advanced in ninjutsu techniques yet. He figured he could ask the other members to help him in that area, and perhaps even some taijutsu training. 1 year later. Naruto had decided to keep a journal of every jutsu he had learned, for quick reference if needed. He also gave a quick explanation. Journal. Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu, Fire Release. Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. A jutsu mostly used for distraction, you launch several small balls of fire at the target. Itachi told me you could set various traps using the jutsu, but then said I'd have to figure out how on my own. The hand seals are rat, tiger, dog, ox, rabbit, tiger. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique. You have to take a deep breath, and gather chakra in your chest, then exhale. I've watched Itachi do it, and he seems to make a ring around with his mouth with his index finger and thumb before spewing out the fireball. He told me it's not necessary to perform the jutsu, just force of habit. The hand seals are horse, snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Kaden. Karyu Enden, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Missile. This is an offensive jutsu, it's along the same lines as Gokaku no Jutsu. You take a deep breath, and gather chakra in your lungs, before exhaling, however instead of breathing it all out at once like Gokaku no Jutsu, you breathe it out in a steady stream of fire. Itachi told me he'd seen Ji-san, back in Konoha, perform it once. He said it was so ferocious, the flames seemed be white. The hand seals are ram, horse, snake, dragon, ox, tiger. Futon. Datapa Wind Release, Great Breakthrough. This is an offensive jutsu, it creates a large blast of wind from where you're standing when you finish the hand seals. It can be devastating if enough chakra is put into the technique. The hand seals are tiger, ox, dog, rabbit, snake. Futon. Shinkaha Wind Release, Vacuum Wave. After finishing the hand seals, you take a deep breath, and spin your body whilst exhaling. Doing this releases a large blade of wind, capable of cutting through almost anything. I should know, I've accidentally destroyed many things with this jutsu. The hand seals are rat, serpent, horse, dog. Futon. Shinkugyoku Wind Release, Vacuum Sphere. You only need one hand seal for this jutsu, which is the dog seal. Afterwards you take a deep breath, and exhale rapidly, spitting out balls of wind. The more chakra infused into the attack, the more damage they can do. The most I've ever seen is for one to go through at least 2 walls before the jutsu ended. Raiden. Jaibashi Lightning Release, Electromagnetic Murder. After performing the hand seals, a wave of electricity will appear from the user's hands. This jutsu can vary in power to weakly shocking the target or strong enough to carve through solid rock. The hand seals are boar, ram, snake, horse, dragon. Raiden Cage Bunshin Lightning Release Shadow Clone. Works the same way as a Cage Bunshin, it can perform jutsu and interact with the environment. If the clone is injured, it will disperse back into its lightning state, electrocuting whatever it was touching at the time. Doden. Doryukatsu Earth Release, Earth Flow Divide. Orochimaru told me of these things called dragon veins underneath the ground, which, using this jutsu, can be manipulated to gain an edge over the enemy. The hand seals are rabbit, boar, rat, horse, tiger, snake. Doden. Doryuheiki Earth Release, Earth Style Wall. This is a defensive jutsu. After performing the hand seals, you spit mud from your mouth, which will solidify into a shield, to be used against attacks. The hand seals are complicated, but are as follows: tiger with left, ox with right, adjust ox above tiger. Sweden. Suihachi Water Release, Hand of Waves. This jutsu will produce a fairly powerful jet of water from the palm of your hand. The hand seals are snake, horse, rat. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Dragon Bullet Technique. Kisame taught me this jutsu to be used the opponent is weakened and can't currently move or defend, as there are 44 hand seals. The hand seals are ox, monkey, hare, rat, boar, rooster, ox, horse, rooster, rat, tiger, dog, tiger, snake, ox, sheep, snake, boar, sheep, rat, monkey, rooster, dragon, rooster, ox, horse, sheep, tiger, snake, boar, rat, monkey, hare, boar, dragon, sheep, rat, ox, monkey, rooster, boar, rat, snake, rooster. End of journal. In the past year, Naruto had found out Orochimaru had tried to attack Itachi, and somehow take his body. Itachi had simply used a genjutsu on him before slicing his hand off, thus disrupting the jutsu. He'd also gone and retrieved his order of custom kunai from Katsuo. It had taken him a little while to get used to the weight, but he noticed they seemed to be slightly faster and could be used with normal kunai to perhaps catch the enemy off guard. It was also during this year, he had met Zetsu. To Zetsu's satisfaction, he didn't seem bothered by his appearance. Naruto was, in fact, in awe of him. He never told him anything about himself, just a quick introduction. To throw him off his trail, he complimented Naruto's skills. Being 11 years old, his ego swiftly increased. Although he was brought crashing back to earth the moment he mentioned anyone in Akatsuki could defeat him easily. He left abruptly after that, leaving him to wallow in self-pity. Naruto had decided that lunch would soon cheer him up. Back to the present, Naruto was currently sitting on his bed, reading a book Konan had given him. It was about the use of tactics in battle. He'd learned a lot from reading these books: distractions, making full use of teammates if you have them, taunts to make the opponent angry, thus weakening their resolve, using the environment to your advantage. He'd absorbed it like a sponge, and was now not as cocky or overly dramatic as he had been. In fact, he seemed more at peace, and a lot calmer. There was a knock on his door. He looked up before uttering, "Come in." Konan stepped into the room, and noticed the piles of books stacked in front of his bed. She let a small smile grace her lips, before saying, "Naruto-san, Leader Sama would like to see you in the main meeting room." Naruto looked up from his book, before nodding and smiling kindly at Konan. "Thank you, Konan, I'm on my way," he said as he got off the bed and put his sandals on, before stepping out of the room, and heading in the opposite direction of Konan. He entered the meeting room to find Pain and Kakuzu. He'd gotten some training, if you could call it that, from him during the last year. He'd taught him some Raiden Jutsu. I guess it helps having weird beasts on your back do all the work for you, Naruto thought, before walking over. "Naruto, you already know Kakuzu." Kakuzu merely nodded, acknowledging the boy's presence. "You're going with him to hunt down an A- class missing nin," Pain told him. Naruto didn't react, processing this new information. He's been raiding small villages with a bandit gang. His body will fetch a decent price, as you know we need the money. It will also give you much needed battle experience. "Yay, but I don't know why we need the money," Naruto added, receiving a blank look from Pain. "All will be revealed in due time. For now, just do as I tell you," Pain commanded with a subtle undertone of authority. Naruto merely nodded, not wanting to argue. He followed Kakuzu out of the compound. "We're going to a small village in near the border of Aim no Kuni. I've heard from various contacts that the bandit gang our target is said to be involved with have been attacking travelers near there." Kakuzu spoke. Naruto just nodded along. "All right, how long will the journey be?" Naruto asked. "We'll be moving at my pace, so no more than a day," Kakuzu replied, before breaking out in a run. Naruto had no trouble keeping up, but to travelers, if they had good eyes, they would have been able to catch a brief glimpse of black, before it flew past. 8 hours had passed since Naruto and Kakuzu had left a Megakure. They had stopped at a dango stand for a bit of rest and something to eat. It was all Naruto's idea, much to Kakuzu's chagrin. He said he could just take a soldier pill, but Naruto had insisted. They soon entered Kohaku village. It was a small village. Naruto noticed that, Although it wasn't that late in the day, 4:30 to be precise, everyone was already inside. There was nothing that said anything about the bandits entering the village. Why is everyone inside? Kakuzu questioned, not really expecting an answer. Maybe it's our presence. Naruto said. No, no one knew we were coming. Let's see if we can find someone. Kakuzu said, before he walked off. They found a small tavern and stepped inside, noticing there was no one in here. Ah, sorry gentlemen, I was just closing up, I'm afraid I can't serve you. The bartender told them as he swept the floor. I don't care about that. Kakuzu told him coldly. Where is the bandit gang that has said to have been around this area? You can't be thinking about going after them. The bartender practically screamed. I didn't ask for your concern, tell me where they are. Kakuzu responded, a certain edge in his tone that sent a chill down Naruto's spine. Oh crap, I need to get out of here. If he gets angry, he'll kill anyone close by, regardless of who they are. Naruto thought to himself. Forgive me, Shinobi-san, they are about 30 minutes to the east of here, there's about 7 of them. 6 of them seem like normal raiders, but their leader is pretty ferocious, I'd be careful of him. The bartender said, before bowing quickly and retreating into the room behind the counter. Let's go, Kakuzu said, walking out the door and heading in the direction the bartender had pointed them in. They had quickly reached the entrance of the bandit camp, and decided to forego subtlety. Doden! Doryukatsu, Naruto shouted out, causing a pillar to shoot out of the ground in the middle of the camp. 6 men soon came out of their tents, screaming various obscenities. What the fuck is that? Was the one Naruto heard most before all eyes turned to him and Kakuzu. You take care of this trash. I'm going for the leader, I can sense him in that tent there. Kakuzu pointed before shunning the short distance. One of the bandits charged at him, trying to catch him off guard, only for him to turn around, his hand seemingly launching from his wrist, catching the man by the neck. Fear flashed in the man's eyes before a quick movement of the wrist snapped his neck. He threw the body to the side, before entering the tent, only to fly out backwards a moment later. While the bandits were distracted with Kakuzu's savage attack, Naruto had already begun forming hand seals, preparing his next jutsu. Raiden! Jaibashi, he shouted, aiming for the nearest bandit, enough chakra in the attack to shock him into unconsciousness. Arg! He managed to get out before collapsing on the floor. Naruto smirked as he noticed the other 4 charge at him, swords drawn, he pulled out a kunai before racing toward them. Surround him, he'll be easier too. The bandit was interrupted as Naruto sent him flying upwards with a thunderous uppercut, he landed on the back of his neck and slumped to the ground. Naruto had turned and thrown the kunai at the nearest bandit. He barely dodged it. Shit! I didn't think they'd send ninjas. One of them shouted. What the hell is wrong with his eyes? Another shouted. Who gives a shit, it's 3-on-1, he's just a kid, and we have the advantage. The last said. Naruto noticed he more experienced than the other 2. Naruto had raced towards the bandit he'd thrown the kunai at, the bandit noticed him and swung his sword wildly. Naruto quickly dived forward, underneath the sword swipe. He collided with the man's shins, knocking them both to the ground. He quickly regained his composure and punched the fallen bandit in the face, incapacitating him. He stood up and quickly performed 3 hand seals before holding his hand out and speaking. Suiden. Suihachi, a jet of water bursting from his palm, hitting one of the bandits square in the chest, launching him backwards, clearly winded. You're far stronger than I expected. A mere boy able to take down 4 bandits, the last bandit told said to him. This man was the more experienced of the 6. He seems strong, I'll have to be careful, Naruto thought. The man suddenly rushed forward, swinging wildly, smirking all the while. I haven't trained enough with Kisame to see through the sword swipes, I've got no choice, I'll have to use it. Naruto thought. Naruto quickly jumped back and held out his arm. Shinra Tensei, he called out. The bandit felt like someone had punched him in the guy before he found himself being launched backwards. He crashed into one of the various tents littering the area. What the fuck was that? Khoo. It feels like a few of my ribs are broken, the bandit thought, coughing up blood whilst gently tracing his chest, trying to locate the broken ribs. Naruto had taken advantage of the situation and began running towards the injured bandit. The man noticed him at the last second, before a ferocious punch knocked him out. Naruto stood up straight, shaking his wrist. Man, that last punch hurt, he complained. He glanced over to where Kakuzu had been fighting, and noticed the man strolling towards him, a corpse draped over his shoulder. Let's go, he said simply. What? We've got to carry that body all the way back to Omegakure. Naruto called out. Kakuzu merely glared at him. No, you imbecile, we're going to drop it off at a nearby black market exchange point, and collect the bounty. Naruto frowned. Hey, we're not done yet. They both turned around to see 3 of the 6 bandits Naruto had fought. One was holding his face, the other his ribs, and the last was furiously rubbing the back of his neck. You didn't kill them? Kakuzu asked, anger clearly present in his voice. Naruto merely shook his head. Do it now, he commanded. What? Naruto questioned, clearly shocked by the demand. I said kill them, they are a threat to us. You wanted to become a shinobi, this is part of it, now kill them. I know you have a technique that can take them all out at once. Do it, they are a waste of time anyway. Kakuzu said as he continued walking. Meanwhile Naruto was struggling with an inner conflict. They are a threat to me. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I've already defeated them, is that not enough? Is this what being a ninja is all about? Killing people to survive, but if I don't act, they'll kill me here and now. What the hell am I supposed to do? Naruto thought to himself. He looked up only to be greeted by the kunai he'd thrown earlier. It struck him in his thigh. You overconfident little shit, we're not going down that easily. One of them shouted. Naruto glared at the bandits hobbling towards him, he could see their comrades stirring in the background. He yanked the kunai out of his thigh, wincing in pain. You brought this on yourselves. Naruto stated simply. He performed the necessary hand seals before calling out, Futon, Daitapa. He watched as the enormous blast of wind hit the bandits full on, small cuts appearing on their skin before they were blasted backwards. Kakuzu had stopped to survey the carnage, and watched as Naruto went to inspect his handiwork. There were 6 corpses strewn about the area, some had deep lacerations in their flesh, others had badly broken limbs. Naruto took it all in, knowing a lot more of this was to come. He simply turned away from the scene, before walking forwards a few steps and vomiting violently. Hey, I've never seen anyone react any differently to their first kill, why are they always sick? Kakuzu thought to himself. He had decided to wait for Naruto to catch up. The trips to the exchange point and back to Omegakure were silent. Kakuzu didn't care. They entered Pain's complex, before Naruto asked. Do you mind reporting to Pain? I'm going to my room. Kakuzu glared at the boy, before nodding, watching Naruto walk off slowly. With Pain and Kakuzu. I see, well, that's to be expected, it's his first time killing someone. Pain said, after listening to Kakuzu's report. Yes, although he seems to have taken it better than most people, killing 6 people at once isn't as simple as one. Kakuzu added. It would have crushed any other person his age. Pain merely nodded, before turning to face him. Have you counted the money? He asked. It's all there. Kakuzu said, handing the briefcase over and walking out. With Naruto. Pain said Kisame arriving tomorrow to give me some training. That gives me some time to think about what I did today. Naruto thought. Those guys were going to kill me. I know that. Does that make me killing them okay though? Is it self-defense? Kakuzu said this is what being a ninja is. Killing people. No matter where you're brought up, if you want to be a ninja, you have to kill people. What about? A knocking on the door knocked Naruto out of his thoughts. Come in. He spoke. He looked up to see Konan enter and stand in the doorway. I heard Pain and Kakuzu talking, you don't seem right. She said. He gave her a sad smile. I'm that easy to read, huh? He asked, his eyes studying the floor. Yes, she told him. Let me explain something to you, she said. He contemplated this for a moment, before looking up at her, and nodding, inviting her to take a seat on the chair by his desk. She sat down and crossed her legs, waiting for him to speak. I don't know if what I did earlier was okay. I know those men were going to kill me, but that doesn't make me any happier or feel better about killing them. He said. She couldn't tell his emotions, his eyes helped him hide them. She continued staring at him. He noticed her face softened slightly before she began speaking. Naruto, you know as well as me, that killing innocent people is not okay. She said. His eyes widened before he moved his gaze from her to the floor. However, if you hadn't killed them, they'd have definitely killed you, there's no doubt about that. She continued, his eyes were still on the floor. They were bandits, scum, they'd killed innocent people before. Do you think they thought about it like you are? They deserved what you did to them. She said firmly, remembering what had happened to her family during the Second Great Ninja War. We're ninjas, Naruto. We are sometimes paid to kill people, most of them deserve it anyway. I know there's not much I can say to make you feel any better. Don't destroy yourself over something that needed to happen. She finished. She stood up and walked towards the door. Opening it, she turned to him and gave him a quick nod before exiting the room. Naruto sat on his bed, in stunned silence. She's right. Those men needed to die, they were bandits. I suppose I should be thankful that I had to kill scum instead of someone honorable. It's something that needed to happen. He reassured himself, before standing up, opening his window and sticking his head out. He took a deep breath, before glancing across the village. I need to think more about this, I'm sure I'll have to kill a few more people yet. Naruto thought, walking away from the window, leaving it open. He plopped himself down on his bed and lay down. Will I be able to handle it? He thought to himself before dozing off. A year later, Naruto had spent the past year training and honing the jutsus he currently knew. He'd also been training with Kisame. Come on, you can do better than that. Kisame roared, swinging at Naruto violently. Naruto just managed to jump over the slice, before landing and rolling back immediately. He quickly stood up and shot through a few hand seals. Kisame noticed this and held Samahata up to defend himself from the attack he knew was coming. Raiden. Jaibashi. Naruto shouted, holding out his hands, and aiming towards Kisame. A bolt of lightning shot out of his palm and struck Samahata. Kisame merely looked at Naruto before swinging his sword around a few times, as if to get rid of any excess electricity coursing through it. Oh come on, Naruto, this is pathetic. He said before launching towards Naruto. Samahata was held in his left hand. He punched Naruto hard in the stomach with his right, sending the 12-year-old careening backwards along the ground. Naruto stood up, and spat blood, before pulling out a kunai with his left hand and charging at Kisame. He raced towards him, forming a cage bunshin, using it as a stepping stone. He launched into the air, throwing the kunai at Kisame, to distract him. It didn't work. The kunai struck Kisame in the thigh. He seemed to ignore it and kept his eyes on Naruto, who was currently flying towards him. Naruto had just finished sealing. He took a deep breath before firing several large balls of wind at Kisame. Shit, I wasn't expecting that kind of attack. Kisame thought. One of the balls struck Kisame in the stomach, forcing him to take a step back, and then another and another. Naruto didn't let this advantage go to waste. He quickly began sealing and called out, Kaden, Hosenka no Jutsu. Kisame, who was just regaining his footing after the wind assault, looked up to see several balls of fire this time, flying towards him. He formed some hand seals, before calling out, Suiden, Sukoden no Jutsu. Naruto, who was using the small fireballs as cover so he could move closer to Kisame without giving away his presence, was not expecting this jutsu. As soon as the water shark struck his fireballs, he dived through the steam with his arm held out in front of him and called out, Shinra Tensai. The full force of a medium-power Shinra Tensai struck Kisame dead on, launching him backwards, causing him to slam into the wall of the training ground. Naruto rolled forward, and backed away from the wall immediately, expecting some kind of attack to fly through the dust that'd been kicked up. When nothing happened, he relaxed, only to hear, "You fool," and a shout of, "Suiden, Sukoden no Jutsu." He turned around to see a large shark made of water flying at him. It struck him dead on, launching him backwards. He lay on the ground before coughing a bit and cursing, "Shit." He stood up and looked up to see Kisame, smirking and strolling towards him with Samahata resting on his shoulder. "Not bad, kid," he said, before sitting on a small rock that was placed in the training ground. Naruto just stood there, rubbing his chest where the shark missile had struck him. "I'm impressed, Naruto," Pain said as he strolled outside. He'd been observing the battle. "Kisame, I'd like you to teach Naruto that Suiden jutsu you just used." Pain continued. "Naruto, how many elemental jutsu do you know now?" he asked. Naruto thought for a moment before answering. "I know 6 Kaden, 6 Futon, 3 Raiden, 4 Doden and 5 Suiden, if you include the one Kisami's going to teach me." Naruto replied. Pain merely nodded. "Very well, today's training is finished. Kisame, I want you to show Naruto that technique tomorrow. You can teach him the basics. His eyes and natural skill will do the rest." He finished before walking out. Naruto merely ran back inside, only stopping to nod when he heard Kisame shout, "Be here at 7 in the morning." In his room, he sat at his desk and pulled out his technique journal. Journal. Kaden. Genkyu Fire Release. Roaring Flame Sphere. Itachi told me this technique is a much larger and more destructive version of Gokaku no Jutsu and only to be used in extreme circumstances. The hand seals are the same as Gokaku no Jutsu, you just have to force a lot more chakra into the technique. Kaden. Zukoku Fire Release. Intelligent hard work. You spit out a small fireball, which is just condensed fire chakra. As soon as it hits a surface, it will erupt into a giant firestorm, causing widespread destruction to the area. Futon. Repusho Wind Release. Violent Wind Palm. This is a simple technique that launches a concentrated gust of wind at the opponent. It can also be used to increase the speed and damage of thrown objects. Pain taught me this one, surprisingly. You just clap your hands together before calling the technique out and exhaling. Futon. Kami Oroshi Wind Release. Godly Wind from the Mountains. This jutsu creates a large vortex of wind that you can launch at the target. There is only one hand seal. Tiger. Raiden. Ikazuki Hakai. The user places his hands to the ground after converting their chakra into lightning. The user then sends an enormous bolt of electricity that cuts through the ground in the direction of the target. The shape of the bolt is a triangular with the base in the direction of the user and the tip headed towards the target. It causes devastating destruction on its way and generates enough heat and power to destroy whatever it comes into contact with. The hand seals are ox, rabbit, ram, dog, monkey. Doden. Yomi Numa Earth Release. Swamp of the Underworld. This jutsu creates a swamp beneath the target. If it is made deep enough, it will kill the target. The larger you want the swamp to be, the more chakra you force into the jutsu. The hand seals are boar, tiger. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu, Water Release. Great Waterfall Technique. This jutsu forms a strong pillar of water to attack the opponent. Due to the force of the water, the target will be fully enveloped and dragged away. It is mostly used when you have someone who can cover you. The hand seals are tiger, ox, monkey, rabbit, ram, boar, ox, horse, monkey, tiger, dog, tiger, snake, tiger, ox, monkey, rabbit, bird. Sweden. Sukoden no Jutsu, Water Release. Water Shark Missile Technique. This jutsu forces water to attack the opponent in the form of a shark. I've been on the receiving end and can vouch for the amount of pain and damage it can cause. The hand seals: tiger, ox, dragon, rabbit, bird, dragon, ram. Sweden. Bakusui Shoha, water release, exploding water colliding wave. After spitting out a great volume of water from your mouth, the enemy is swallowed up by this advancing surge and crushed. The user can ride the wave, allowing them to move at high speed, and attack the enemy, now swept off their feet, without fear of counterattacks. The amount of water created is proportional to the amount of chakra used. The leftover water can be used for additional water release jutsu. End of journal. After Naruto had finished adding his latest jutsu to his journal, he turned around and collapsed onto his bed. He began thinking about what was going on in Konoha. Hey, I wonder if they've given up the search yet. Jiraiya is probably still looking. I guess Ji-san would be as well, but the council have probably told everyone I'm dead. There's something else to celebrate on the 10th, I guess. But one day show them what they missed out on. Naruto thought to himself, a grin plastered on his face. The next morning, Naruto awoke at 6 in the morning. He glanced out of his window and noticed villagers already stirring. He liked the way they treated him. He smiled to himself, before stepping into the bathroom to get ready for the day's training. He went down into one of the various kitchens in the complex, only to find Itachi there, sitting at the table. Naruto. Itachi acknowledged. How is your training coming along? He asked. Naruto merely nodded. I think it's coming along well. Kisami's going to teach me another jutsu today, and I've been experimenting with my eyes. Pain told me that although I can see normally, if I focus a little bit of chakra to my eyes, I can see chakra. I must have done it subconsciously when you asked me that first time, with the barrier. He finished. Itachi merely nodded. I thought so. Even though it's constantly active, you can see through your eyes normally. It's not like the Byakugan or Sharingan, which can be turned off at will, but when they are activated, they change your vision entirely. Quite handy really. I'm sure they must drain chakra, but considering you have so much, I presume it hardly scratches the surface. Considering it's always active, you have to abandon subtlety or stealth since it's easily recognizable. But the ability to master all 6 chakra elements and the various other techniques that come with it makes it seem like that disadvantage doesn't even exist. Itachi finished. Pain mentioned the Sharingan once when he was teaching me Shinra Tensei. He said it wouldn't be able to copy it. What did he mean? Naruto asked him. Ah, Leader Sama is right. That kind of jutsu is restricted to those who wield the Rinnegan. I'm sure there are more jutsus like it. I couldn't copy any of them. I have no idea how they work. I presume it's something like a Kekkei Genkai. An extremely complicated one though. Itachi answered. Kekkei Genkai. I read about them in one of the scrolls in the library. It's something that's restricted to a certain clan or person, right? Naruto asked. Yes. Most Kekkei Genkai are actually 2 elemental natures mixed together. I only know of 2 of those, which are Mokuden Jutsu and Hyoten Jutsu. There's also Dujutsu, such as Rinnegan, Sharingan and Byakugan. Itachi told him. There's so much I don't know, damn it. Naruto berated himself mentally. He glanced at the clock on wall. Shit. I'm supposed to meet Kisame at 7, can we talk later or are you going somewhere? He asked Itachi. I'll be here for the rest of the day. I'm sure the jutsu training won't take too long. I have something I want to talk to you about anyway. Itachi said. Naruto nodded, before grabbing an apple and sprinting out the door. Naruto reached the training ground at 7:05, only to find that Kisame was nowhere to seen. He strolled up to the rock that Kisame was sitting on yesterday, only for the ground to break apart. Kisame burst out and grasped Naruto by his collar, easily lifting him off the ground. Where were you? He asked simply. I was talking to Itachi. Naruto struggled to get out. Huh, I see. Kisame said. Finally dropping Naruto, the boy landed on his feet and jumped back, dusting himself off. What the hell was that for? Naruto shouted. You were late. I needed to discipline you. Kisame answered, a smirk playing on his lips. Alright, I'll explain the jutsu to you. Kisame said. Naruto merely nodded before he continued. After you've formed the hand seals, if you've honed the sweeten element to an extremely high level, you'll be able to just form the shark and launch it at the target. If not, it'll be like Daibikufu no Jutsu and Suiryuden no Jutsu, which means there has to be a reasonable amount of water nearby. Now, the hand seals are tiger, ox, dragon, rabbit, bird, dragon, ram. Before that though, come over here and Shinra Tensei this part of the ground for me. He said, pointing to a part of the ground. Naruto just shrugged before strolling over and blasting a small crater into the ground. Kisame smirked before forming a few hand seals and spewing out enough water to fill the crater. Right, after you've formed the hand seals, just call out the name and the jutsu will attack whatever you're looking at. Once it's launched, however, you can't control it. That's a big disadvantage, so it's best used when the target is distracted or can't move, like when I got you yesterday. You lowered your guard and look where that got you. Kisame said. Naruto glared at the man. Now show me the jutsu. He commanded. Naruto went through the hand seals, before calling out, Suiten, Sukoden no Jutsu, and keeping his eyes on the wall in front of him. A large shark comprised of water rose out of the crater and sped towards the spot Naruto was looking at. It crashed into the wall, causing small cracks to appear where it had hit. Kisame whistled before telling Naruto, nice work, I want you to try to make it smaller and more compressed, it should be a little bit faster that way, making the main disadvantage of the jutsu not as prominent. Naruto nodded before trying once again. This time the shark didn't do as much widespread damage, it did however impact further into the wall. This kid is ridiculous, I just taught him that jutsu. He's had 2 tries and both have been reasonable. Leader Sama did mention something about his eyes. Eyes and natural talent I'll ask Itachi if he knows what he meant by that. He seems to know a lot about dujutsu. Kisame thought. Alright Naruto, practice the jutsu for however long you want, I've got some matters to take care of. Kisame said, strolling away into the complex. Naruto stood there for a moment before forming another shark missile and launching it at the wall. With Kisame. Kisame entered the main foyer of the complex, only to notice Itachi sitting in a corner, studying some kind of scroll. Itachi, I want to ask you something. Kisame shouted, walking towards him. Itachi didn't even look up, he just gestured at the chair opposite him. Kisame swiftly collapsed into it, placing his feet on the table, wobbling it slightly. Itachi just frowned. You know about Naruto's eyes, Leader Sama said something teaching him jutsu, but he picks them up within 4 to 5 attempts, I've never heard of anything like that, even with natural talent.